we will not get that trouble today. Anyhow, I'll just slide to some slides already we have covered. I'll try to finish as soon as possible. Okay. This is what we already yesterday gone through. This is the statics where you can just, I want to just refresh what we have seen yesterday. From 1800 to 18, the consumptions of coal and crude oil has been increased very drastically, and natural gas. Along these three are fossil fuels. Of course, due to this, we are also seeing a lot of pollutions and everything in the our environment. So, in the end of 1800 or the 20th century, we are seeing that the slight increase in the renewable sources also. So, this is how we are going towards the renewable sources. And also you might be knowing that oil crisis in around 1700 somewhere, because the OPEC countries started to control the oil prices. So due to that, people's also, that is also one of the reason why we are going for towards the renewable sources, because if they are started to control the complete fossil fuels supplied to all over the world, then it is difficult for us to afford or to use as our wish. So we have to independent of such things. So in that case, renewables also helps us to become energy independent. That means we need not to depend on other countries to supply their crude oil or the fossil fuels. Okay, this else we have seen how the projections. If you see the projection from 2018 to 50, always we are in the top. Asian countries in India and all, we are on the top of the. And here you can the left right side, you can see the what is the increase in the industrial. We are seeing the industrial and transportation sector energy consumption is going to be increased very drastically. And of course, if you see nowadays this COVID pandemic, nowadays before we are talking about go for the community or public transportation, but now we are all going for the individual transportation. Of course, we'll see how it is goes and what these projections may little change coming years also. Now this is the primary energy consumption. In the future, if you see again, renewables are taking top of all the other resources. That's the one good sign. We don't know we can reach this, as it's a prediction. We have to reach, then only we can save our environment or ourselves from the any such diseases or calamities. This is the, of course, is again the projections. The global electricity by sector wise. See, you can see the industrial also it is increasing. Residentials also increase. All the sectors where see the increase in the energy consumption, or as even though electricity also. Of course, they go hand in hand. This is the Indian primary energy consumption. If you see, we are also increasing in the in overall by statics. What I want to show is that we are all in progress, or it is a drastical need of energy sources. It may be electricity or any other form. It is a transportation, residential, commercial, all the sectors we require huge amount of energy in the coming years. So we need to satisfy all those energy requirement in a very affordable, clean manner. So why we renewables? Already, if you see the statics, you can answer very easily why renewables are required. But of course, we'll try to put. I will try to put my perspective. Okay? If you see the traditional way of power generation, we are using fossil fuels. It gives a lot of pollutions, and it's an indirect power. That means we are not taking. It is not generating electricity directly. We have to burn it. Some chemical changes, mechanical stages required. So a lot of intermediate steps are there. Through that, we are going to get the electricity. Of course, this is basically for the power generation. All these intermediate steps what we are seeing. Even solar thermal example, you can see IC engines, thermal, nuclear, hydel. All these are lot of intermediate steps are there to convert a energy source from electrical energy. Even solar thermal also one of them. In order to see to reduce the losses, we try to have a systems which can convert directly a source into the direct electricity. That is very examples are for that. Very few are there, but very good example is photovoltaic as well as the fuel cells, which will convert the sunlight into electricity. Fuel cell generally converts hydrogen energy, chemical energy into the electricity. These two are direct conversion. These devices generally gives a better efficiency and performance also. So through that, of course, if you take wind and others, there also intermediate steps are there. The major advantage that we don't have any greenhouse effect from the renewable sources. Okay. This is what large gap between demand and supply, and we need to meet the demand in such a way that it should be environmental friendly, affordable and cheap. These are the requirement we need to see that. And even also power plants also one of the major factors for the environmental pollution, rather apart from industrial and another is the transportation power sector are the major, apart from industry. I'm telling industry anyhow they are giving a lot of pollutants, they are adding these two sectors also adding. We see some UKs and all, they try to close the coal-fired power plant. That's the issue now. Then all the governments have found a lot of stringent policies, guidelines, how to operate your, how much effluents you can release to the environment. If in many countries and many power plants, they are not able to follow these norms. So some people are trying to close down their coal-fired power plants also. So that are these are also leading towards the renewable sources power generation. Okay. And this is what we are seeing. And if you anyhow the coal fired or the centralized power generations are kept in somewhere and where loads are different, so a lot of losses also we have seen in the systems. Okay, so if you want to reduce all these problems, if we have a local generation, it's only possible with your portable like PV, wind, small scale wind, your fuel cells. Lot these can add up to the efficiency improvement or reduction in the loading of the transmission system or the distribution. So these are some factors why we are going for the. Of course, the last point what we're talking, ease of operation control. Of course, it may not be easy operation control when a distribution, when a source is connected to the distribution, it becomes active network. When a distribution system becomes active, then the lot of issues will be there to in order to control operation. We'll see some of the what are the issues will come into the coming slides. Okay. The same what we require from or what we expecting from renewable source is nothing, and also alternate energy sources. In alternate energy sources, as of now presently we can see that your hydrogen is a lot of potential is there, but we have some other barriers not to use the hydrogen, say, but it's a very clean energy in one way. In other way, it is also a similar to the coal-fired power generation, and it is environmental friendly. It's a low cost. Of course, hydrogen energy is not that much of low cost. Your wind and PV your hydel are quite low cost. And sustainability, that means we can see that in the future future generation also can use such renewable or the energy sources. Here, just we have listed some, these are the standard renewable sources: PV, wind, solar, hydrothermal, wave, geothermal, biomass. Generally these are all renewable sources. Out of this, you can see wind and PV are the, we have as of now commercially well established technologies. Solar thermal is also in some countries, they have also very good setups are there. Small hydro, of course, it depends on the geographical and resource development. Wave, still it is an ongoing process, but they did not get much of efficiency from wave and ocean. Geothermal, of course, is very specific to the geographical. So in some Greenland and all, they have very good already set up their geothermal plants, and they're using completely most of their energy supplied by the geothermal. Biomass, of course, biomass is a very oldest source for us. From beginning we are using. Now that how we are using the process using is now it's different. The another alternate sources, if we are talking about renewable, the hydrogen is nowadays the alternate energy sources, which will hydrogen can be generated by coal gasification, or hydrogen also can be generated using the electrolysis. If it is a coal gasification, then it is as similar to your coal fired thermal power plant. That means we have to use lot of effluents will be coming out, and then it is not a fit into the renewable type of sources. If we are going for electrolysis and other forms, if there are some industries will give out the hydrogen that can be utilized for your for fuel cell microturbine. And fuel cell is one of the upcoming technology. In some places already established. Even in transportation also they are using, in stationary power generation also they are using. In microturbines also coming up. It is not as commercially available as wind and PV. And fuel cells and micro, they are as of now they're a bit costly. Fuel cell may cost around 8 to 10,000 per watt. So that is the barrier. And hydrogen storage and regulatory norms, these are all having the drawbacks for the hydrogen based energy. Maybe in the coming days, if proper infrastructure is available, then hydrogen based energy can be one of the alternate for our energy requirement. Now, issues with RES. Okay, generation is unpredictable. Demand is also varies continuous. So when two are variables, the matching between those becomes the very issue. And the problem is that when these two demand and generations are varying, extract the maximum power from the renewable becomes a issue. When the demand is there, our renewable may not be at the maximum availability. When the demand is low, your renewables may be at the highest. So these are the major issues will come across the renewable sources, and it may create lot of disturbance to the grid also. If you connect a renewable source which is highly fluctuating, the grid is as it is a standard grid from the beginning, it experience a lot of disturbance. So a lot of work also has done, and still work is going on in the mitigation of the disturbance to the grid from the RES integration. Okay. Now this is what issue generally will find when a renewable source is connected to a system. It's a reverse power flow. It becomes a problem for the protection system. Whenever if you connect a it is from top to, if you consider top to bottom power flow, if a renewable source connected to a distribution system, if at all loads are at the other end of the protection system, then your relays may see the reverse power flow. Then your relay may trip, and it has to be properly reconfigured if you have a renewable sources in the distribution system. And power quality is always will be there. Voltage sag, voltage swell, operation of your voltage, that means online tap checking. If at all there is a lot of voltage variation, then your transformer will try to set up the voltage. If at all you have a very high generation in terms of wind, when you have a wind gust, suddenly the voltage will rise. If at all very large voltage is there and you don't properly set your voltage at that time, there may be a sag in the voltage. So it will create lot of power quality issues. It is as a power system point of view, but if we take the quality, the harmonics also one of the major issues in the renewable sources, because if you have a polytronic devices, especially for your PV and other wind also have, if you going for the permanent magnetic synchronous generator, that time you will have a full-fledged polytronic converters, which will lead to a very lot of harmonics into the system, apart from this voltage, sag, swell and operation. Protections, of course, we have to reconfigure and we have to change the protection schemes also. And safety also becomes one of the issue when you are any maintenance work, or if other you are taking a maintenance work of a line, if at all any distribution system or your renewable source connected to the particular system, if proper care is not taken, then it is going to be hazardous for the humans as well as the system also. Flicker, it is very specific to the wind system. Lot of, if you go through the literature, you can see lot of work on flicker itself. Whenever there is a generator switches on, switches off, it will give rise to flickers, especially the induction generator and DFIG. Whenever system, when the wind crosses the cutoff wind speed, then generator will start. That time it will inject the voltage variation into the system that leads to a flicker. That is also one of the problem. Of course, these are a lot of remedies also given, but if it is a wind is very highly varying, if you have a lot of gust, suddenly wind stops, suddenly wind system starts, that time we'll see the lot of flickers. Islanding, anti-islanding, intentional landing, these are also comes into picture. If you want to operate your distribution system in a off grid mode. That time or otherwise your distribution system is disconnected from the grid, but your renewable sources or the distributed generation is still in operation. That time becomes islanding. It may be a intentional islanding. That means you want to operate a distribution system in islanding mode. That time it is fine. But if you don't want to operate that time still your DG is running, then becomes the problem. So islanding is also one of the issue. And anti-islanding, you need to see that whenever a grid fails, your DG should also switch off if you don't want to operate in the islanding mode. And islanding detection also one of the issue. If there are any lot of disturbance in the grid, it may be detected as the grid failure. That time your distribution or the renewable source will disconnect from the grid. Again, it will try to connect. That time also you will get a lot of power quality issues. And resynchronize, it is one of the major issues in our renewable sources integration, because once a grid is failed and grid is come back, we need to see the phase angle and the voltage level. If you don't match these two when you are reconnecting your DG system into the grid, that time you will see lot of fluctuation in the PC. That means point of common coupling, lot of voltage and current fluctuations you can see. That is not very affordable from the grid point of view. So you have to do the proper resynchronization once the grid restored. That is one of the problem when you see in the renewable sources. And the lack of inertia due to faulting. When you have a PV system and PMSG based wind system or the fuel cell, you don't have any inertia. If you take the traditional power system, we have a huge turbine as well as the rotor is running, which will act as the temporary energy storage. If at all any load is removed or increased, that inertia will take care of for a moment until till the your input is properly maintained. But in case of power transmission device, that facility is not there. If at all suddenly your load is increased, there will be a dip in your voltage or the power supply. If at all you remove suddenly a load, then there is a very high voltage increase in the PCC. So for that they have again for they call virtual inertia. They will try to put the virtual inertia. That is a different case. Of course, itself is a topic to study. So these are all the some what I feel major, or maybe some, may not be, I cannot say it's some of the problems when a renewable source is connected or distributed generation is connected to a existing power system. When you connect renewable sources into the power grid or the power system, a lot of operational control complexity will come, because when you have a very big wind farm or solar farm connected to a regular power system grid, you may expect that today, as per the predictions, you may get yes and not be available. That time the unit commitment from your regular coal fired or the centralized power system becomes the issue. That also and the spinning reserve also becomes as you how much spinning reserve you have to keep. All those also pose lot of operational and control issues also. Those are the what we have previously we have seen. That's a different problem, and this is a purely power system problem, unit commitment and spinning. All the as the electrical engineer we know, when you connect a large 100 megawatt, 200 megawatt, when a PV or wind system is connected to a regular grid, that time these also has to be taken care into the when they are planning, like a post or power grid has to be taken care of this. And one of the major issues that size and placement of DG plays a very crucial part in operation of the power grid, because if you don't size it properly, that point of common coupling, it may lead to voltage cell swag, all the issues will come. And where you need to connect, if at all we connect with a very high voltage end, that time it will leads to very large voltage spike. If you connect to a very lower voltage end, that time also it becomes so your sizing of the your renewable sources and placement of the, here if you put in general, if a DG means it is a renewable source as well as the other alternate sources also you can consider. So the sizing of such sources becomes very important. In that, lot of work is also done, and people still they are working on that. What is the best place and what is the or optimum? We cannot say best place. It is the optimum place and optimum size. That is also one of the issue. There's a last point. Even they are free, the prime issue is its output power fluctuations. It's a major problem we see from all the non-dispatchable. If take wind, PV, all are non-dispatchable. But if you go for the micro turbine and fuel cells, they are dispatchable sources. That you try to keep in mind. Now, how we can resolve these RES issues integration with the grid? One is you can have a better forecasting. That is one way. That means in the future how much renewable sources can be used. But for having a better forecast, you should have a better data also. If you have a larger and very high frequency data, that means if you have a hour data, if you have a minute data, depending upon that your forecasting will be better. If you have a better forecast, you can have the better planning for your power generation of the system. But even if you have a very better forecasting also, there may be, it poses lot of problem when there is a change in the environmental condition. So that's also one issues. And how we can of course it is a trade-off, how much forecasting can be taken into and how much we can in time online configuration can be done. That is also one thing. And if you go for the how to resolve these variations, one way is that combining different sources, like it becomes a hybrid system. I'll just try to make you from energy sources to the hybrid system and how we can lead into the micro. That is my I'll try to make it in that flow. So when you have a two different sources are connected, like PV and wind. PV is available in the daytime only, where wind is available from the continuously 24 hours. So if you try to combine these two, some issues can be, of course it is not a complete solution. It will give a one way of solution. That means a 24 hours power generation may be available, but still it is a highly fluctuating. That you need to remember. Or if you combine PV fuel cell, if you combine wind fuel cells, PV fuel cells, like if you have a lot of combinations, in that it may be a possible, or some for some extent we can resolve these the power fluctuations, and we may able to give the a constant power supply to the grid or the load. The another better way is that you have a storage. Of course, if you go for the battery storage system, around 40% of investment has to be given for the storage. That if you go for the battery, that's the one issue. If you can afford it, if you see many of the paper, they have 1 megawatt, 2 megawatt, or 5 megawatt, like that. Battery storage systems also there for specifically for PV or specifically for wind, like that. In some countries they have battery storage also. So that is depends on how we can what is our economic position. So one better way, in my opinion, if you go for the storage, that will give the lot of feasibility, so that you can use renewable source in a good way. And if you able to control in a local, that means where the renewable sources are connected, if you have a proper control and operation, that also resolves some of the issues with your renewable sources integration. Now, as I told you, just I mentioned about the energy storage. Just I want to give a glimpse of storage systems. It can be, depends how the energy storage systems has to be taken care. It is functions, its response time. That means how fast it will react to the requirement. That means if you take a ultra capacitor, it will act in seconds. If you take the battery, it will also act in seconds, but it will give hours of supply. But if you go for the mechanical, like a pumped hydroelectric compressor, it will take some minutes to get the power. If you go for the, of course, batteries and flow batteries are the best way, especially the flow batteries. Flow batteries are the large storage devices. Of course, it has its own drawbacks. Batteries, rechargeable batteries, also one of the solutions, but these batteries problem is that the investment and maintenance. If you go for the sulfuric acid batteries, it gives lot of effluents also. That is also one of the problem. Flow batteries, of course, it has a lot of storage. You can store for hours together. It has its own limitations also. If you go for the electrical, in that capacitors are the supercapacitors, superconducting magnetic storage. In that, most of the time you will see supercapacitor are the superconducting magnetic element. Of course, it is superconducting magnetic energy storage is still not very used in a very wide, but supercapacitors are the ultra capacitors are used in some places because supercapacitor they very high power dense device. That means it can give hundreds of kilowatts or megawatts in a second. So it in some cases supercapacitors or ultra capacitors are useful. For if you go for the long term storage, then you have to go for your batteries or compressed air or the pumped hydro. So it depends on that time and where we want to use and what type of storage you want to use and what is your economic condition. Depend on that, you can choose the energy storage. In many places, what we have seen is that batteries, compressed air, some places are there, and pumped hydro also. In India also we have some of the pumped hydro stations are there. And the next one is that your hydrogen storage is the best way to store energy. That means if you go for the pumped hydro, you need to go for the lot of space for the dams and reservoirs. If you go for the compressed air, again you require a lot of mechanical devices. Flywheel also is one of them. And if you go for the super capacity, it's a high power dense device. You cannot go for the hours together. If you want to go for hours together, you need to have a lot of combinations of super. So the one way, in my opinion, one of the best way to store the energy is hydrogen energy. You convert whatever the available energy from renewable sources, convert it into hydrogen by electrolysis, and you store it. If you hydrogen storage is very best way. It can store large amount of storage and also you can store it for a longer period. So it is one, as of now, of course, we don't have any established or commercial available storage like that, but it's one of the future coming, we can say. And of course, the last one is not that much. We don't worry about that thermal energy. It's a sensible and latent storage. Now, as I've seen previously, I told combinations can be done. Generally, the hybrid systems, most of the time, I will go with the energy source systems also. What the combination, what we can see is that wind PV, that means wind and photovoltaic, wind and fuel cells, photovoltaic and fuel cells. Here, when you're going for the storage systems, you need to have the 2 points. One is, are you going for the grid connected system or standalone system? If you're going for the standalone system and your PV or wind you're using, then your storage system is must. Otherwise, you cannot supply the power. If you going for the grid connected mode, then we will avoid the storage systems. Okay, if you have a large wind plants and PV plants, generally they will directly connect to the grid without storage. That's one option. If you are going for the standalone system or islanded mode, that time you have to have the storage. Otherwise, you cannot supply power to the loads. And the other combination, some reference again, it's older one. Now you can go for a lot of different combinations are there, and also fuel cell, electrolyzer, ultra like that. All these different combinations can be done from renewable as well as the non-renewable sources. Here, I'm not taken any micro turbine combinations here. Here, fuel cell is a dispatchable source. That means we can schedule the power. That means as long as your hydrogen is supplied to the fuel cell, it is going to generate the power. So if you have such, and also one point you need to remember when you're going for hybrid, if you have a dispatchable source like fuel cell, it is good. That means if at all you don't get any wind or PV solar, that time your fuel cell can able to supply the power. Whenever your fuel wind or solar is available, that time you can reduce the power from the fuel cell. So that flexibility will get from your dispatchable source. So in some combinations, apart from this, some people's also given the DG set. That means your diesel generator or the IC engine coupling also will be there in order to have a constant power supply. It is how we are going to defend the combinations all depends on the individual. Now it is one in my work I try to work out these combinations where of course I not used PV, I use the PMSG fuel cell and I have a storage. This is the how a grid connected hybrid systems can be there. When you have a PMSG, that time you have to go for AC/DC consideration. Then you have to go for the boost converter where you have to here this may be a controlled or uncontrolled. If you are going for the control, that here itself we can have the maximum power point. If you don't have, then you need to go for here. Okay, this is how it's connected to the common. This is your common DC link. Your fuel cell you need not to go for the MPPT because whatever the power you are giving, it will be going for the DC. And if you have a PV, then again you have to go for the DC to DC converter, and your controller should be MPPT type. So this is the one way of combination, and you can have the storage. See here, even way to connect storage is also a lot of work is there. That means, do you want to connect it DC link, or do you want to connect at the AC link, or you can have a combination of storage. It may be a battery and ultra capacitor, or it may be a compressed air or the fly. So what type of storage, depending upon that, this converter will vary, and every converter has to be locally controlled, and it is to be monitored in the central level also. Of course, you require a DC to AC in order to connect to the grid. Of course, here your PQ control, PV control, or voltage frequency controls will be there. Of course, we will try to see. You can see now one point is just I want to mention here. You can see a lot of converters coming into picture. If you see a wind turbine, we have to go for 2 converters. And if you go for the PV case, you have only 1 converter required. If you go for the fuel cell, you require only 1 converter. You just try to remember these 2 points. We will try to discuss these in the coming slides. Now, when you have a hybrid system, you can operate in isolated mode, or you can operate in a grid connected mode, or in island. See, there is a difference between isolated mode and islanding mode. Isolated mode means your system is never connected to any of the grids. That means it is always separately operated. It is completely your standalone system. Islanding means it's supposed to be connected to grid, and if in case of grid failure, your system has to be operate in an isolated or islanding mode. So that you try to keep in mind. Okay? If you want to operate in all these different modes, you require different control schemes. There are hundreds of, that means you can see the literature, many number of control schemes are there. It depends on what is the best. It depends on the person who is going to use that, or which one is be implemented. So I will not discuss in detail of the control scheme, because each control system itself is a topic to consider or be discussed. Okay? And when you have this hybrid system or the DG system, the power sharing becomes the issue. That means if you have a dispatchable source like fuel cell, how much fuel cell has to be given and how much your PV or wind. In one way, PV and wind should be operated always in maximum power point thing, and your fuel cell should be whatever the rest of the power should be supplied. That is the one generally will follow. Otherwise, depends how you have to share that one. And reactive power support is also an issue, because most of our PV and fuel cells may not supply the reactive power. If you want to supply the reactive power, you have to have a very robust control, and as well as so you should have a proper DC link capacitor in order to supply the reactive power. Okay? Notice. So if you see all these operational control issues and all, what we can think is that you can club all this and make a part of the grid. You control that particular part, and easily which can be connected to grid, or it can be operated in a isolated mode. That actually led to the microgrid concept. That means I have a generation, I have a cluster of loads, I have generation in that particular part, and I can supply without any problem to particular that section of the load. That means that part becomes a microgrid, or you can term it as a microgrid. It is not like till now we don't have a very specific or a defined definition for a microgrid. You can think of a particular section of or the locality, or a particular section of the grid where you have a sufficient generation and control. Then that part can be operated in a islanded mode or in a grid connect. That part becomes your microgrid. So that you can call it as a micro. So from, if you see from this, starting from the slide, we just started with renewable sources and we combine different renewable sources, then we make it a hybrid. When we are able to operate them very properly in a particular section of the grid, then it becomes a microgrid. That led to a concept of microgrid. So those things we'll see how it is, we can go with that. Now what how we can defend a, can we operate a grid, can a section of the grid operated independently? That means any part of the grid can operate independently when the grid is failed without affecting the rest of. That means your part, whatever the generation is there, your storage is there, that should not affect the rest of the grid. And if at all you are operating your section of the grid independent, that means the grid disturbance should not be propagated into the section. That means microgrid section should not be disturbed by the rest. If there are any fault or the problems in the grid, that should not propagate into the microgrid or that part of the grid, and it should operate very properly. So that nothing but you are going for the islanding. So if at all it is possible, then it is possible to have a microgrid. So if these 2 points, of course, it's in my view, if at all these things is possible, then you can provide power to the particular section of the grid in case of the grid. Grid failure may be a fault in the grid or a usual maintenance also. Anything can be there. Okay. Okay. Now, one just want to indicate the grid failures. Whenever the, especially the frequency is the major criteria for the failure of grid. If you see blackout in 2012, it is said that, if you see some of literature, it said that it's the largest power outage in history. So it is 670 million. It's not people. It's 670 million people has been. Sorry for that. People has been affected. Total northern grid has been blocked out during that time. Of course, recent also there are a lot of grid failures are there. Just I have taken the real very older one. So it was the, you generally will see these outage in the literature. So it was one of the largest outage in the history, like that it has been seen. So in that case, it will take a lot of time to restore the grid. Once the grid is failed, if you see the recent failure in the grid, the northern grid has been failed, but our southern grid was stable. That means because we have a asynchronous link between your northern and southern grid. So that made a problem, saved us from the failure of the, it is not propagated from northern to the southern. So if we able to operate in a sectional wise with in synchronous with the other sections also, then it's a very good. If at all any problem in a particular section, you just disconnect that section and you operate others. Of course, in general, power system is working in that way itself, but if you any failure is there in particular grid or other rest of the grid, if generation is not there, that means whole section will be deprived from the power. In that case, if you have a power junction in that particular section and you can able to supply without problem, then it is a very good option for us, or the good solution. So that is a one way how we can going for the micro grid. Now it's just these are may not be a standard definitions. If you go for literature, there are different definitions also there, and it is not a standard definitions. It's a part of electrical network which have local generation loads and can operate in islanded mode. You should be able to operate that part of the grid in the islanding mode. Then only it can be called as a micro. Of course, otherwise, if your grid fails and your DG is not operating, means it is just a grid connected mode. Or if you don't connect to the grid, that becomes a isolated. So it should always in sync with the grid. If grid fails, then you should operate in the islanding. That becomes the, for the components of the microgrid. You have it's of course it is perspective, what who is talking about microgrid. It depends on the components also. In general, what we see is a loads will be there, storage devices are there. The first one is a distributed generation. It's a must, and probably you should have a renewable sources. You have a loads, storage devices also should be there, and you should have a proper controls, and you have a point of common coupling. So you can here you have wind turbine, it's connected to the common coupling point. You have industry users are there, micro turbines, PV systems, energy storage comes here. It is your, this is the grid and it is your common point. So these are the normally these things will be there in a microgrid system. Okay, here the other presentation. You can have multiple microgrids also. It's not like that only one grid microgrid can. If you have a different sections of the network and you can operate those sections independently with proper control, then you can have multiple grids also in the system for a same network. Or if you have a two localities are there, they can be operated differently, and those can be two microgrids also. So you can have different microgrids in a network also. Okay, now this is one uh, uh, presentation of microgrid. Also here you have wind turbine. Just I want to, this structure you try to see here. Wind turbine AC to DC is there, PV is there, DC to DC, fuel cell DC to DC, storage system DC. Here you have a single inverter. You can see if you have all the sources connected to a common DC bus and a single inverter is there, and then you go for the common coupling point and you have a load. So this is one way, and this inverter also has to be worked in conjunction with your grid requirement also. If at all grid fails, then it has to supply the proper voltage and frequency to the load also. That is one of the way how we can operate. Or in some cases what happens, you may have multiple, each source or the device can have the inverter also, so that you can each one have inverter and that can be connected to common coupling. That time the difference is that if you have a single inverter, if at all any problem in the single inverter, then whole microgrid has to be, or all the sources has to be disconnected. If you have a single inverter for each of the devices, that time if any problem is there in particular source, then only that inverter has to be shut down. So of course it is of course again the economic and operational issues. It depends how what type of configuration. Generally in nowadays we'll go for the multiple inverters. If at all a particular set, even if you see the large wind or the your distribution system I have here, and have connected DC systems with your local distribution system, and you have the load. So if you able to operate this part independently regardless of your this availability, that means even your grid is there or not, if you able to supply power to this section, then it becomes the microgrid. And of course you should have a proper, here I am not shown any storage device. Have a storage device. Otherwise, if all these things are renewable sources, that time you cannot supply the load in if at all your resources are varying. If you have fuel cell in that case, that may be a one possible. So this it may be clear from this, and this part of the grid or the network becomes the microgrid. Okay. Now here the different configurations, you can see the reference below I given. Lot of reference are there. You can thousands of papers are there. You can go through. Just I want to show that what this is. You have a grid, your PCC, you have static switch and circuit breaker. Here you can see the feeders. You have a different feeders, and for different feeders you have connected the sources also. You have battery, photovoltaic. Here you can see PV, ultra capacitor, and wind system. So here like that, even each feeders you can connected your DG systems, and you can operate, and whole as a whole you can operate them as a your microgrid also, or you can operate them in a independent particular feeder also. Of course, if you go for the feeder way, then it becomes very complex and economically may not be feasible. Okay. So the one another issue I want to tell here, if you take nowadays any electrical or electronic devices, we are going for solid state devices. Just see one online UPS here. See here your load is also AC. You required AC here. To get from here also we are getting AC. In order to have continuous power supply, we are going for the AC to DC rectification. Of course, you know all these things. Okay, this part, even though you required AC itself here, your input is also AC and your output is also AC. But in order to supply continuously, we are going for this converter. So here two converters are coming, and they are, even if you take at least just 5% of loss also, then here itself we are going to lose 10% of the power. So if you going for the power devices, even though it is DC or AC, everywhere you will see the converter devices. So you have a lot of multiple conversion stages you can see. So those stages will increase the losses. So what we can do in that context with the microgrid, this issue, that means multiple conversion and loss, how we can address this in conjunction with your microgrid. Okay. So here just a overview about DC. If you go for the DC, it's your commercial buildings, or nowadays we are going for the LED lightings, data centers, electric vehicles, communication centers, battery. All these are purely on DC. Data centers also require megawatts of power in DC. There also, apart from chillers or the cooling towers, all your data centers running requires the DC. And your commercial building nowadays, if you go for the ACs, fans, and your home appliance, now they're coming with your BLDC. Now they're all require DC power, and your most of our storage is in terms of battery. So all these requires DC itself. So if you want to supply these, presently we are supplying these DC power in with multiple conversion stages. So it is going to be increase the losses. So how we can include these issues and how we can address these issues in the micro is also one of the solutions. So if you go for the DC distribution system, you can reduce the multiple conversion. You can, that means you can directly use the power. Different voltage levels can be have. Of course, your EVs, batteries, LED. If you have a, nowadays they are making standards. Of course, as of now, we don't have very proper. Now some standards also came, but still they are working. Generally, we'll go for to 12 to 48 volts standards are there for home appliance. That means nowadays they're going for the 48 volt safer working voltage. And if you go for industrial level, the distribution system, we are going for the 380 volt standard. So now we have some standards coming up, and in the future also we can see a lot of standards. If you, in many institutions like IIT Madras, they have DC distribution system in their campus itself. They can go in for as, of course I have not met physically, but one of our colleagues, when I was talking to someone, they mentioned that they have in hostels also they are giving the DC supply from PVs, like that I heard. Okay? And many places also in they are going for the DC distribution system. So it is one way. Then how we can use this DC concept into the micro? That's one of the solutions we can have to get it. Okay. So now DC microgrid also coming into it. AC microgrid, DC microgrid. Of course, we'll see how we can go through these things. Okay, our AC systems are existing from hundreds of years when our DC generators started. Of course, our power system is started from DC itself. After that, we move when we when Edison was there, he was propagating the DC systems. When we got Tesla, when we got the induction machines, we moved towards the AC system. Of course, there are a lot of fight between these two also. So nowadays again we are moving back towards the DC, because now we are lot of loads are in terms of DC. So again we are moving back to the DC system. So your LEDs, EV, BLDC based appliance, all these requires DC. If you are able to supply this directly from your sources, then the lot of conversion stages as well as losses can be minimized. So that's the one point we want to mention. In present devices, you can reduce. So for example, if you go for the PV and fuel cells, they will give power in the DC form itself. If you are able to utilize that direct form to these appliances or these loads, it is well and good. We need not to worry. We can reduce lot of conversion stages. That means we are saving the of money also. That means you are not investing inverter money, as well as you are reducing the losses also. Of course, it is not a best solution. It is one of the solutions. You can go for the optimal solutions also. Okay. Now, here one is the DC microgrid. You can see the DC microgrid. Here you have a grid. It is purely DC microgrid. There is nothing in there. You have microgrid. You have grid is there. You have an inverter, and you are supplying the DC power. To that DC bus, we are connecting the batteries, photovoltaic, wind, and others DC loads. Okay. Here you can see battery is connected with only one DC to DC. PV is connected to one DC to DC. Your wind, of course, if you have two multiple connectors will come into picture. And loads, if you have a DC loads, you have only one load. And if you want to supply AC loads with here, you have to go for the inverter. So it is not, as I told you, you can connect this load directly to here also. So it is depends. One, just to give the example, I have taken this reference paper. Now, how we can go with the DC microgrid? Here you can see this extension of one what I shown in the previous. It is I try to work out on these structures in my thesis also. So here you have the pure wind. You can connect DC to DC. Wind is AC to DC and storage DC to. Here this becomes the DC to DC bus. If you want to supply AC loads, you have a DC to AC inverter and you supply the loads. If you have the DC to DC load, that means you have a DC to, okay, it has to, even though if you have a DC bus, it may be 380 volts or it may be 48 volts. So if you have a different voltage level, then you need to go for the different, the inverter, sorry, about the converter rating or the voltage level, because different devices may operate in different voltage levels. So that if you go for the chillers and all, they'll operate in 380 or higher voltage. If you go for the LED lamp, it will operate maybe in 12 volts or 24 volts. If you go for some battery configure, it may operate in 24 for their time. Depending on that load, you need to configure your DC to DC converter. This is the one way how a DC and also with AC you can have it. So it becomes the AC DC hybrid or AC DC microgrid. Now you can see here your AC bus is there, your DC bus is there. So you feed the power and you connect all the different sources with that. It becomes an AC to DC source. Okay. I think I have only 5 minutes. I'll try to wind up. Okay. Okay, fine, sir. I have 5 minutes.
Yes, Santosh, sir.
Okay. Right. Run through the slides now. This is the one representation of. This is one AC/DC mic. ಇದೆ ರೂಮ್ ಹೌದು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅವರು ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಇದ್ರೆ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಸರ್. Okay, see, this is one of the representation of AC/DC microgrid. Here you can have different sources with different and you have a bidirectional AC to DC converter and you have bidirectional AC backup power. So this different you can have a different sources, different configurations also in a AC to DC microgrid. That means here why we want to put a DC microgrid here. If at all it is possible to use the DC power directly, you use it. That's flexibility you can have when you have a AC/DC microgrid. But if you go for such configuration, then complexity, your operation and control issues becomes more complex. So that is also need to be taken care of. Okay? Here, I will not go in very detail anything. I just trying to mention what type of controls we are using. If you go for the grid connected mode, you will go for the PQ control. If you islanding mode, you can go for the PV control. If you have a fuel cells, then you need to go for a droop control, or if you have two sources, then you need to go for a droop control. And you have a master slave control, fuzzy controllers are there, adaptive controllers are there, distributed controllers are there. So all these different types, just to mention, there are many controllers are coming up. In order to just I listed few of them. And in there, one of the other ways control is that hierarchical control. That means you have a main microgrid controller which will operates on the overall. It will monitor the overall microgrid. That means your grid parameters, your status of the sources and storage devices, and it will look after the overall grid performance, your microgrid performance. In the second level, each converters have their own control. That means PK or PV. So those becomes your local control. The overall hierarchy in the main control, grid will your microgrid will manage complete control, and your second level of controls the individual sources. So that becomes the two hierarchical controller. So and they have group, many controllers are there. If you go through, you can see all those things. In other way, islanding motor, you can have single master or multiple master. In single master, a single inverter will give the all the reference voltage and frequency. In multiple multi-master mode, you have many VSI which will give the reference, and other apart from those VSIs, the other inverters will work in the PQ mode. So different controller, very few I mentioned here. Now this is one just how of course it's taken from some of the reference, how the control structures you can see here. You can see you have a micro turbine. You are going for, you have two sources here. So fuel cell micro turbine, these are the dispatchable. When you have a dispatchable, you have to go for the droop control. It means how much power has to be shared is going through the droop control. If we have a wind and PV, then we are going for the maximum power point. So it depends on the source structure and all the control strategy will differ. So this is just overview. You can read out here if possible. Now, it is how a grid is operated, how it is. So what will be the difference between your grid and the microgrid? Efficiency of conversion may be low as compared to one, because you are operating at a particular section and you are supplying in a particular section. It means your T&D losses are mostly reduced. So your efficiency is increasing, and if you have a renewable source, obviously in turn is going to increase the efficiency. So microgrid efficiency generally it is higher. There are a lot of debates also there on that. In conventional sources for coal fired or other things, lot of energy is lost in the terms of heat. So if you go for the microgrid, see here, remember microgrid means you should have a renewable source, then only it is useful or it is good to have. Otherwise, if you have again a DG that is IC engine based microgrid, then no use of that in a way, because again you are going for the effluents and all heat losses. So if you have a renewable sources or alternate sources, then your microgrid installment may be very useful. Okay? Small, and in case of your power sources are small, that means you are portable. That means you are very near to the loads and it can be operated easily, and they will give a lot of flexibilities also. Okay? Now, what we need to consider when you're going for the microgrids: generation capacity, that how much generation you have and how much load you have, and if you want to see the future also, how much load is coming and can you add generation in that manner for that particular section. So the generation capacity as well as the demand you need to see. And the storage is must for backup, because if you depend only on the renewable, then you cannot operate a microgrid. So you should have a proper storage, or you should have a dispatchable alternate sources. So that what is the capacity of that also we need to be taken care. And you need to operate with the minimum cost. If you require a lot of human resource or a lot of finance in that, then it is also not feasible. And you need to see that it should be very possibly minimum or zero emission. If you go for renewable, it's almost zero. If you go for fuel cell and all, you need to see that your hydrogen is generated from a universe. Then it is a good. And your access to electricity is also one of the key point. Maximum reliability, you should see that in case of grid failure, you have to supply the power at any condition. That is the reliability you should have. Then only your microgrid is useful. And of course, reliability and anti-supply goes hand in hand. And you can reduce the impact on the environment. And you should utilize the renewable source. You should have more renewable sources so that your load on the fuel cell and all can be consumed. And your fuel cost, if at all you are using hydrogen, then you should see that your fuel cost has to be saved. So these are the key points generally. In my opinion, these should be taken care. Okay. And the advantages, if you see, in during the grid disturbance, you can isolate from the utility, and you can seamlessly you can supply the power to that particular section. Okay. And you can also aid the grid so that you are reducing the load on the grid, so that there may be a reduction in or you can prevent the grid failure due to the overloading. That is also one of the advantages of the microgrid. And you have a lot of environmental. If you're going for renewable sources, obviously it is a environmental benefit, and you can increase the overall efficiency, and you can reduce the cost also. Okay. And the may have advantage, but we have a lot of challenges also. Here, voltage you have to properly maintain, especially voltage problem when there is a grid failure. That means you need to maintain a voltage frequency. In case of voltage, your grid failure, if grid is there, then these two are not issues, because your grid supplies the reference voltage frequency. If grid fails, then you need to generate proper voltage frequency reference and power quality. Because if you have a combination of sources and control, then power quality also will come. And all the demands has to be met within the standards. That means 3% of your voltage current harmonics and 5% of voltage harmonics. All those, and that voltage limits also, then all those things has to be met within the standard. IEEE has a standard for this also. What is the limitations and upper and lower limits. And islanding detections, it is also one of the important. You should detect the failure grid as fast as possible, and you should disconnect your microgrid from the grid. That is one point. And the major issue is resynchronization. It always a problem. Once a grid restored, then your microgrid has to be properly and seamlessly, it has to be reconnected with it. Otherwise, you will see a lot of fluctuations in voltage, current, and power. That it may shoot up to very large. So resynchronization, here also a lot of algorithms, control structures are there in these two also we are seeing. And load shedding, if at all your generation is not sufficient, you should have a proper load shedding depending upon the priority also. In case of AC-DC microgrid, the load has to be shared properly between AC and DC. How much AC you need to go, how much DC you need to go, and what are the critical loads. All those things need to be taken care. That is also one of the challenge. And protection, of course, when you have this complexity, protection is also a very important point. And your all the settings of the relays and circuit breakers has to be reconfigured depending upon our structure. Of course, at the last what I can say that when you have different devices connected data system, it will give a lot of technical and manageable problems also. Okay. From my side, it's done. Of course, I have given a superficial presentation, not in detail for every component. It can also be done, but it takes 2 to 3 hours for each level. So I have given a superficial microgrid concepts. Okay, thank you one and all. If you have any doubts, if at all I know, I'll clarify.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, there is a request. I have a request, sir.
Yeah.
Actually, the thing is, there's a lack of time. So
Yeah.
ask the participants to mail the questions to us, and all the questions forward to you, and you answer us, sir.
Yes, sir, no problem. If at all I'm able to answer, I'll answer. Otherwise, I'll find and I'll answer. It's not an issue.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you all the participants. Today's session was very enlightening one. Discussed areas are of great ease to the participants, I think so. And this session was immensely useful for all the research scholars and faculty. The research scholars can get technical inputs for their research work from our speaker, which in turn will help in motivating participants as well. Thank you very much for your intensifying our proficiency, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now let's move on to the word of thanks. I request our coordinator of DP, Mr. MV Praveen Reddy, sir, to convey valedictory of session.
Before you conclude, I just want to thank, just 2 seconds I'll take. Thank
sure,
you
sir, sure.
all the management and Imran sir and our Ramesh sir, all the coordinators and management. I thank you. Thank you the Vageshwari Engineering College, and also special thanks to our Venkatesh sir. Actually, generally he will be always in touch he was asking regularly for these presentations. Because sure. I have a lot of work in university. We are going for a lot of work, so I could not able to find a lot of time. Okay, and thank you and all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome, sir. Praveen, sir.
Hello, Imran sir. Is my voice audible? Clear?
Yeah. Okay, sir. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Good morning to all. This is MV Praveen Reddy, Associate Professor from EEE Department and one of the coordinator of this FTP. I am very much admired to convey vote of thanks on behalf of our department. I would like to thank our today's eminent speaker, Dr. Santosha Kumar Garu, Assistant Professor, Department of Electrical Engineering, School of Engineering, Central University of Karnataka, for providing useful guidance to participants regarding renewable sources and microgrid in real-time applications. Thank you, sir. And also it is my privilege to thank our beloved management of Vageshwari Group of Institutions, our General Secretary, Dr. G. Srinivas Reddy Garu, and Joint Secretary, D. Srinivas Reddy Garu, for boosting and assisting us for conducting this type of activities. And also it's my pleasure to thank our beloved Principal, Dr. C.H. Srinivas Garu, for actuating and influencing us for organizing this type of sessions. And also I express my heartful thanks to our beloved HOD sir, Dr. M. Ramesh Garu, for providing us time-to-time instructions about the conduction of this FTP. Finally, I express my genuine thanks to all our department faculty, technical and non-technical staff who helped either directly or indirectly for smooth conduction of session. Thank you all. Over to Imran sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Praveen sir. Thank you very much. Due to lack of time, we could not ask the question and answer session, sir. But we have already placed number of questions in the group chat. So we will forward those questions to our Santosh sir, and we'll get back the answers and we'll mail you the answers, sir. And one more information I would like to inform you all that whatever the sessions are going to be held in the FDP, all the sessions are going to be placed in the YouTube. For the participants, I request the participants to just go to the YouTube and write Vageshwari College of Engineering. I repeat again, YouTube, go to the YouTube and write Vageshwari College of Engineering and subscribe our channel, and all the session FDPs, whatever the sessions we are conducting, even from the webinars and all these FDP sessions are uploaded in the YouTube. You can also listen those classes carefully. Right, sir? Thank you very much. And one more thing I would like to request all the participants. Some participants are having some audio problem and some are having video problem. There is a drawback in the Zoom app. That is every time the updated app, whatever we get it, we must update that app in our mobile phone or else it is in systems to have a good clarity of audio and video. So I request all the participants to update your Zoom apps to have a clarity in both audio and video. I repeat again, YouTube channel available in your our Vageshwari with name Vageshwari College of Engineering. So you can subscribe the channel, and all the webinar FDP class sessions, whatever happening in our class belongs to civil department, CSC department, EEE department. All have been videos have been uploaded in the YouTube. And today our session, today's and yesterday's, will be uploaded by today 2 o'clock. Before 2 o'clock, after 2 o'clock, you will be able to see it clearly. And one more request is that the feedback link has been placed in the chat box already, and this link will be active only up to 2 p.m. 2 p.m. is the last time for submission of feedback. And the last announcement is today's session in the evening, where we will be as usual continued from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. There is no change in the schedule. It